obviously, I am not Hojo-san. He has a bit of the COVID. As many of us have been grappling with this really annoyingly named flirt variant. Have you heard that acronym? The flirt? The new COVID variant, like the new version of Omicron, I think it's called the flirt variant.
Flirt?
Yeah. I didn't make it up. It is what it is. Anyway. So I have a few things that I want to say, and then we'll be breaking for our ceremony. So the things I want to say are kind of a setup for that, words of kind of thoughts about the ritual and about ritual itself that we'll be engaging in, and then we'll break, and there will be some work with things like incense and altars and such out there, and we will have the ceremony that we're celebrating today, the O-Higan ceremony, celebrating Daigen Shuri Butsu and our honoring of the earth spirits of this place. So that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit more. And then really the main event is ritual and apple crisp. So let's not forget that part, which is also ritual. Okay, let me just get my notes here. So, as it turns out, I just watched Coco, the film, the Pixar film, for the first time. Have any of you seen that? If you haven't, your homework tonight is to see it. And, you know, it's a film set in Mexico about the Dia de los Muertos, about a little boy and the spirit world. And there's this central image or reality in the film of the bridge connecting the land of the living to the land of the dead, this bridge of petals, this golden bridge. And I think that image of a bridge that connects what we know of our lives and of our world to something else, that image is a pretty good image for what a ritual is, as this kind of space in between, this threshold space, this liminal space that we create by making order through putting things in particular places, a kind of geographic order, and then also a kind of temporal order where we do this and then we do that and we do another thing. We create this kind of bridge. Now we also do that, I was just thinking about this as we were chanting this morning, our vows that we chant on Sundays, the Bodhisattva vows, beings are numberless, I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible, whatever the words of those vows are. They're super important, but I forget them. You know, these are impossible vows, right? I mean, vows are always impossible. You know, we know enough about impermanence. We people who spend Sunday mornings sitting here, we Buddhist or Buddhist types who come here on Sundays, we know enough about impermanence to go, well, like, what's a vow? I mean, who I am now is not who I am in a minute or two, much less next year, much less for all of eternity, right? But those vows, those words, that's also a bridge, right? It's a bridge that we enact in language. So thinking about that bridge and why those kinds of bridges are necessary, and in fact increasingly necessary in the world that we live in now. Because we live in a disenchanted world. And I mean that word disenchanted in at least two senses. So it's disenchanted in that, like, oh my God, you look at your phone, you look at the newspaper, you're like that kind of sense of, I'm really disillusioned, right? I'm disenchanted. Our world is like, no matter who you're talking about, what political or religious or moral or anything stripe that they are, everyone's disenchanted. But I mean it, and these two meanings are tied together, I mean it in another more kind of technical sense, that our world is disenchanted in that the modern world has been emptied out of magic. It's a very prosaic world. It's a mundane world. Everything I'm going to say today, by the way, if it's at all interesting to you, I learned it from Hojo-san, and so come to Thursday night assemblies where he's talking about he's talking about the world, the flattened world, the disenchanted world, and the role of spirits and the role of rituals. So if this is like a teaser for for what Hojo-san can share with you on Thursday nights. But this disenchanted world, I actually, in my former life, but not in a Buddhist sense, just like back in 2017, I was a professor at the University of Oregon, and what I taught and studied was the time period that disenchanted our world, the early modern period, the time of like Shakespeare, of Martin Luther, Protestant Reformation, the rise of science. And that movement that disenchanted our world, I mean, super important, important, impactful, but also super beautiful. Shakespeare, my God, Shakespeare, he and I are like this. No, Shakespeare, right? This is what Shakespeare's theater is all about. His participation in a cultural moment, a historical moment where it's like the emperor has no clothes. It's all theater. All the world's a stage. If any of you know the play Henry V, I won't give you homework of reading or seeing the play, but Coco's a little easier, a little more colorful. But, you know, the play Henry V, Prince Hal, King Henry, actually, one of the things that makes that such an incredible role to watch is King Henry's recognition that nothing separates him as king from the commoner who's going to die in battle because of what he as king has done. And so he has this incredible speech about ceremony. And I always, when I read or hear that speech, I now always hear it with Kenneth Branagh's accent. Ceremony. Thrice graced the ceremony. Okay, I can't do it. But he says, you know, like this incredible recognition, like there's nothing that separates this person from this person than this person other than the theatrics of stuff we've made up and that's been passed down to us. It's all just theater. That's the disenchanting of the world that says, like, you know, the scepter and the mace, or all the stuff, the bells, the whistles, bells and smells, as we say. It's just stuff. Now, disenchantment doesn't sound so great, but when you think about like a character like Henry V in Shakespeare is a great example. But when you think about what that flattening of hierarchy between king and commoner allows, it means that you have someone like a King Henry on the stage saying, holy shit, what am I doing? I've brought these men to battle. They're going to die for me. This kind of emergence of the individual conscience. Like, I have to take responsibility. I'm an individual. I'm not just enmeshed in some world system that I just take for granted. It's all created. It's all constructed. And now what do I as an individual do? The rise of individual conscience. Martin Luther is part of this moment too, right? Protestant Reformation, Martin Luther standing before the authorities of the church and saying, here I stand. I know what I know. This is all hokum, you guys. So the rise of the individual conscience, huge. I mean, this is amazing, right? Responsibility. So we live in this world of individuals. Now, this is also the Newtonian world of billiard balls where everything is just material forces connecting with each other. Does that link make sense? It's like, I'm me, you're you, we're all bits of matter interacting together, and we're all kind of doing it on a level playing field, or we should be. Like, if it's not level, it's because someone's rigging it, and we can fix it. We can make it better. It's huge. This is beautiful. And it's also a world that's dead. It's dead matter. I'm dead matter, you're dead matter. Even though I'm alive because of bits of dead matter that move together. And then when I think that I'm dead, it's just more dead matter that's now doing what dead matter in the earth does. Everything's dead. So that's the downside. Right? It's a big downside, but being individuals and having responsibility is a big upside, right? And we're not going back. Like, there's not a going back to a world that's enchanted, like just naively enchanted. That doesn't, you can't, the ratchet only goes one way. So here we are. But we can build a bridge. We can build a bridge. The bridge isn't just automatic for us. We actually have to build it. We actually have to consciously say, okay, the world is dead. How do I bring it to life? How do I enter into a world that's alive, where everything is alive? where all bits of matter aren't just bits of matter, where they're spirit, a world of spirits. Really important to do this work. It's important because I mean, we're suffering, right? I mean, it doesn't feel good to be in a world that's dead. But also, our believing that we live in a world of things that are dead is also what enables us to extract every last bit of value that we can from the things that are actually living. So when we first celebrated this ritual with the earth altar that we're going to celebrate it with today, that was last year on Earth Day. Because one of the kind of political consequences of this spiritual, religious ritual work is things like, how do we care for this world that's not all dead? How do we actually recognize a world of life everywhere, of living things? Because if we don't, big consequences. Yeah, it's also about our freedom. Because in the world where everything is dead, I have an individual conscience, but it's not an accident that huge questions of free will emerged in the same time as Martin Luther and William Shakespeare, and that you get like the writing of John Milton in Paradise. I can see I'm like a former English prof. Sorry. But, Paradise Lost, and the big question of like, what is free will? Huge question. Because if it's all bits, billiard balls, where is freedom? My past choices condition my present. My past choices themselves are conditioned by prior past choices, which are conditioned by prior past choices. It's turtles all the way down. Where's freedom in this? So the other side, there's this like, how do we save the earth by not thinking it's all dead? But there's also, how do we save ourselves? How do we find freedom? And to think about ritual as in itself enacting our freedom is kind of a powerful thing, in which I invite you into that inquiry today. Like, how is the ritual that we will participate in a few minutes, how does that enact my freedom? And as a kind of little, not really an explanation for that, because that's a question I want each of us to carry. I have some answers for myself. I don't have your answers. But I want to read a little poem, very little poem, by the poet Jane Hirshfield, which I don't think I've read in this hall before, but I've read it a lot of places. So if you've heard this before, if you've heard this one, hum along. So Jane Hirshfield is a Bay Area poet. She's also a Zen practitioner, and she spent a lot of time in Tassajara and the monastery in Tassajara. And this is a poem called A Cedary Fragrance. A Cedary Fragrance. So it's remembering her days at Tassajara. It says, even now, decades after, I wash my face with cold water, not for discipline, nor memory, nor the icy awakening slap, but to practice choosing to make the unwanted wanted. I'll read it one more time. Even now, decades after, I wash my face with cold water, not for discipline, nor memory, nor the icy awakening slap, but to practice choosing to make the unwanted wanted. So she's remembering her days in Tassajara with unheated water, right? It's a very simple ritual that she's describing. It's a ritual that's all about, how do I choose a life that actually I can't choose? Because the problem of free will, aforementioned, right? There is no freedom in the world of billiard balls. But how do I choose nonetheless? How do I act nonetheless? And every ritual with its prescribed ways of doing something, you hold the incense like this, you put it here. Every ritual invites us into this active choice. Not to achieve something, not to wake up, oh, cold water. not to discipline ourselves. I'll be a better person if I learn to make do with cold water. Not even for mindfulness reasons. I'll just attend to the chill of the water. No. But just to practice choosing. Just to practice the intentional activity of a living being enacting our freedom. So, in a moment I will get up, I will bow, and then there will be all manner of arranging of things. Jacqueline will explain more. He can, I can't. And just an invitation. Let us be alive in a living world together.